Okay, so now that we reviewed two-step equations, we're going to review how to essentially get our equation ready in order for us to be able to solve it. So the first thing we may have to do is combine like terms. So think of this like you are taking all of your variables in this case, right? So your 5x's, your 4x's, and your negative x, and we're just going to put them together so we don't have to do maybe 10 steps, right? We can kind of combine that into one step. And so as you guys are looking at your like terms, the first thing we want to do is we want to identify which are the like terms. So my x's with the same power, so my 5x, my plus 4x, notice that I'm going to take the sign in front of it, and my negative 1x or minus x. Okay, and so I'm going to just combine those together. So the question is, how many do I have together? Well, I have 5 and 4, that makes 9, minus 1, so that makes 8x, right? Because we're still talking about x's. And then I can go ahead and just combine all of my constants. So remember, your constants are just your regular old numbers. So I have a positive 1 plus 4, so that gives me a positive 5. Okay, and that's it. That's as combined as this equation can get. Remember, we cannot combine our x's with our constants, right? That's like apples and bananas. Can't just combine them and call them something else. All right, so let's identify what's alike on this next one. So I have a 2x and I have a negative 8x. Okay, so if I combine a positive 2 and a negative 8, I get negative 6x. Okay, I keep that x there with it. And then I just combine my constants. So I have a negative 7 and a negative 1. So negative 7 and negative 1 is going to combine to a negative 8. Okay, on the next one, so again, identifying which are alike. So I have a 3x and a positive 2x. So 3 plus 2 gives me 5, and I want to make sure I keep that x with it. And then just combining those constants. So I'm going to combine the positive 4 and the negative 2 again. Notice I'm keeping the sign that's in front of the number. That's how I know that that 2 is negative, because there's that minus sign there. So a positive 4 and a negative 2 gives me a positive 2. Okay. Okay, last one, you're going to just try to identify what's alike and see if you can go ahead and combine those, and then we'll go through it. All right, so I have some x's to combine. So I have a positive 3x and I have a negative x. Remember that negative x is really, there's a 1 in front of there. So if you just see a negative x or a minus x, that's really a 1. And so when I go ahead and combine these out, I have 3 minus 1, which is 2, 2 minus 5, which is negative 3x. And then just go ahead and combining those constants. So I have a negative 3 and a negative 9, and those combine to a negative 12. All right, so the other thing we might have to do is distribute. So using what we call the distributive property. Okay, so when we distribute, we're going to multiply the number on the outside of the parentheses by everything inside the parentheses. All right, so what I mean is, we're going to take the number on the outside, okay, so this 3, and I'm going to go ahead and multiply by everything inside. So what that means is I'm going to do 3 times x, which just gives me 3x, and then I'm going to go ahead and do 3 times 2, and notice it is a positive 2, and I know it's a positive 2 because there is a plus in front of it. So 3 times 2 is a positive 6. Okay, and that's that, right? So we're not trying to combine them because that's about as simple as simplified as it can get. All right, next one. So I'm going to take this 2 and I'm going to multiply it by the r. So 2 times r is just 2r. And then notice here, I'm going to go ahead and multiply my 2 by a negative 4. And the reason I know it's a negative 4 is because that minus in front of the 4. Okay, so we take the sign in front of it. So 2 times negative 4 is going to give me negative 8. Okay, now on number 7, remember when we just see this negative right here, just like what we had here, that's really just a -1. Okay, so if you see a negative or a minus sign outside of the parentheses, that's just a -1. And we're going to treat it the same exact way as we would if it was any other number. So -1 times 2x. So you're just going to multiply those, the coefficient by -1. So -1 times 2 is -2. And then we just keep the x. And then I'm going to go ahead and multiply the -1 times a -11. Again, knowing it's negative because there's a minus right there. So that makes it a +11. And again, guys, feel free to use a calculator on those basic computations, right? Okay, so then what do we do if we have all of this kind of combined together? So we always distribute first, okay? If you have a parentheses, we're going to go ahead and get rid of that first. So what we're going to do is we're just going to worry about this guy right here, okay? This 2 times 6x minus 4, we got to get rid of that parentheses. And we do that by multiplying all the way through. So 2 times 6 gives me 12, and I just keep the x. 2 times -4 gives me -8. And then I just bring this plus x down because we haven't dealt with that yet. Okay, so we've distributed, we've gotten rid of the parentheses. Now, there's some things that we can combine, right? We can combine this 12x and this 1x. Remember, just an x has a 1 in front of it. So we can go ahead and combine those. So 12x and 1x gives me 13x. And then I'm just going to bring that 8 down because, again, there's no other constants for me to combine it with. Okay, so we distribute first and then combine like terms if we can. All right, number 9. So what do we do if we have to distribute first? Remember, distributing is just multiplying through. So -2 times m gives me -2m. -2 times a +5 gives me a -10. And then I just bring that -4m down because I haven't dealt with it yet. And then the next thing I check is there anything that I can combine? Are there any like terms? Well, in this case, the answer is yes. I can combine this -2m and this -4m, right? So -2 and -4 combine to -6, and I just bring the m with it. And then I just have the -10. Okay, and I know it's a -10 because, again, that's what was left, right? We take the sign in front of it because there's no other constants for me to combine it. There's no other numbers. All right, on number 10. So I'm going to go ahead and just bring this x down because I'm not going to worry about it right now. Only thing I'm worried about is this right here. Okay, notice that I included that minus with it, right? Because that makes that 3 negative. So what I have is -3 times x, which is -3x. -3 times -4, which is a -3 times -4 is a +12. Again, guys, use a calculator either on your phone or an online graphing calculator to solve those computations, right? We don't want to miss it because we're making simple mistakes on those. And so then I'm just going to combine my like terms. And so I have 1x here. Remember, if it's just an x, it's a 1x. And I have a 1x minus 3. So 1 minus 3 gives me -2x, and then I just bring that 12 down because there was no other constants for me to combine it with. So again, we're just going to combine our like terms after we distribute, right? So we always check for parentheses first, and then we check, can we combine things? And we haven't really solved anything yet. All we're doing is think of it like we're cleaning the equation up. Which brings us to our solving. So as I said earlier, we're going to check for the distributive property first. Okay, and then we're going to combine our like terms if necessary. Notice that doesn't mean we're always going to have to do it, right? We just have to check first. And then we solve, and then we can check by plugging our answer back in. So let's look at 11. Okay, I check for distributive property first. Well, there's no parentheses, so that part's already done. Okay, there's nothing for me to do. Then I check for like terms. Is there anything that I can combine together? Well, I have a 6c and I have a positive 2c. So that can actually be combined to 8c plus 6 is equal to 38. So yes, I can combine like terms. And then it just goes back to solving a two-step equation like you guys did earlier. I am going to remember subtract 6 from both sides because it is a positive 6 and we want to create that 0 pair. So that leaves me with 8c is equal to 32. And since 8 and c are being multiplied together, I'm going to go ahead and divide because that is the inverse operation. So that's going to give me c is equal to 4. Now, how do you check your answer? Well, let's plug 4 back in for c. So instead of c, I'm going to say 6 times 4 plus 2 times 4 plus 6 is equal to 38. And I got to make sure that that is a true statement. So again, notice all I did is I replaced where I originally had c's, I now replaced the answer that I got. So 6 times 4 is 24. 2 times 4 is 8 plus 6. Okay, that gives me 24 plus 8 is 32 plus 6 is 38. So yes, we got it correct. Now let's say you plug it in and you get something other than 38. Well, that just means we need to go back to the drawing board because we made a mistake somewhere in our calculations. All right, number 12. So I check for the distributive property first. And remember, we know there's a distributive property if we see a parentheses. So in this case, yes, we got to distribute. So we got to make sure, a very common mistake is that you guys don't multiply by this number, like this just gets left as -1. So we want to make sure that we go ahead and multiply by everything on the inside. So -3 times 2 is -6x. -3 times -1 is a positive 3 is equal to -15. Okay, distributive property, done. Combining like terms. Well, there's no other x's on this side and there's no other constants on this side. Now, if you're wondering, can I combine this 3 and 15? The answer is no, because they are on opposite sides of the equal sign. Okay, so notice we can only combine things that are on the same side. So anything that's on this side together or on this side together. Okay, so combining like terms is done. So now I'm just going to solve. So by performing my inverse operations, I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides. And I get -6x. Please make sure we bring that negative down. Okay, sometimes we tend to be little magicians and that -6 disappears. So -15 minus 3 is -18. Again, using that calculator in case you're not sure on those integer rules. And then I'm going to divide by a -6. Again, be careful that negative needs to be carried through all the way. If it was a -6 here, it needs to stay a -6 here. And we also need to make sure we are dividing by -6. So I get x is equal to 3. And again, we can plug it back in to check. So I have, if I check right here, -3 times, and then 2 times 3 minus 1 is equal to -15. Well, 2 times 3 is 6. 6 minus 1 is 5. Sorry, 5 times -3 is -15. Okay. So again, if you get something different, that just tells you we need to go back to the drawing board. Okay, one more. We're not going to worry about 14, so just 13. Okay. Real quick, so this one kind of has both into it, right? Because sometimes we will have to distribute and combine like terms. So first things first, we're going to distribute. So I just worry about this guy right here. So I'm going to go ahead and bring this down because I'm not even going to worry about that until I get rid of that parentheses. So 6 times 1, 6 times 1 is 6. 6 times 2 is 12, and I want to make sure I keep that m. So I've distributed, I've gotten rid of the parentheses. Now I got to check for combining like terms. Well, on the same side of the equal sign, I have a 12m and a -3m. So those can go ahead and be combined, right? Think of it like if you're going up to a drive-through and you are ordering 12 cheeseburgers and then saying, wait, I need 3 of those taken off. Well, you could just say, I need 9 cheeseburgers, right? So the same idea. We're just cleaning it up so that it makes it easier for us to solve. Okay, so we get 9, and then again, performing inverse operations. I got to get rid of that 6 first because it's a constant, even though it's written first. And it is a positive because there's no negative in front of it. So I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides. I get 9m is equal to 18. And then again, since 9 and m are being multiplied, I'm going to go ahead and divide, and I get 2. And that's it, guys.